All right, when we talk about accounts on Instagram, that brings some great content. This is one that is always mentioned, but aside from that, a great story behind it all, and it's one that I wanted to bring to you, the Centralites. If you're on Instagram and you're a fan of barbecue and grilling, you're probably already following the count, so let's go ahead and race to the Traeger Grills hotline and welcome first-timer to the show, Hey Grill Hayes, Susie Bulloch. Susie, how are you?
Hey, I'm so good. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely fabulous, Susie. Appreciate you asking. Great to see you there. Lots of stuff to get to this evening. Maybe not the most usual type of interview that you might do or have done because we want to do a little backstory here. But let's start, from the back. Where'd you grow up? Where do you come from? And where are you at now?
I was born and raised in Utah. I still live here with my husband and my 3 kids. I split time between the Salt Lake City area in the winters, and in the summers, my family owned a hotel and an American-style steakhouse near a national park in southern Utah called Bryce Canyon. So we would go down there in the summers, and I would bus tables and wash dishes until I was old enough to wait tables and work the line, which was really fantastic and a great way to grow up. Got married after college, had a few kids, and kind of found myself unexpectedly in this amazing world of barbecue.
So that's going to be fun to kind of dig into here in just a second. As you had referenced, you really did have a unique exposure to the grilled food world quite early because of that restaurant. How did that place compare to some of these new high-end joints that we're seeing pop up all over the place?
Oh, it was for sure not high-end place.
Were you talking like Sizzler or something like that?
No, it was better than Sizzler. But I will say that it was in a very, very tiny town of like 500 people, maybe. And so the food that we had access to was all food service, like delivery style stuff. So it was not like high-end steakhouses today where you can hand cut whole muscles and pick your own grading. We very much catered to incredibly hungry hikers and tourists who were very excited to have a very thick steak and a nice, fat, juicy burger.
Are you surprised when you see how the steak scene has evolved on a commercial side that it is where it is at this point, or are you not surprised?
I am not surprised because, and this probably comes from that restaurant experience, right? We catered a lot to European tourists that were traveling in like the early 2000s. The national parks were huge. They wanted to come see America's national parks. And in southern Utah, there are 5 that are within a day's distance of driving. And so people would plan an entire week to come see the national parks. And beef at the time wasn't as readily available or expansive in a lot of the European countries that were traveling to where we were. And so for them, this was like magical American cuisine, right? And so as a waitress, I would bring out like a 16-ounce porterhouse and set it in front of them, or like a double bacon cheeseburger, and the eyes just went so big. And just seeing that kind of reaction that people had to steak and to burgers and that kind of cuisine, like, I'm not surprised at all. I think it's very, it's just universal, right? Like,
I mean, is there anything more,
kind of
if you're visiting from a European country, you're doing all this hiking, I mean, does it stand to reason that there is probably nothing more American after you get done hiking and seeing the national parks than to have a big, fat, juicy steak?
Right?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I think the growth of how popular and prominent this type of cuisine is isn't really a surprise to me, but I love it and I love being a part of it.
Did you go to college?
I did. I actually have a bachelor's in science in psychology.
Is that like my business degree bachelor's I got?
I use it all the time.
So, I mean, college is kind of weird. I mean, do you think it's a necessity at this point, or given how much cost is? And I mean, I look back and look at all my friends. Certainly there were a few, but look, I mean, when I really look back on it, these were ladies and guys in high school that said, hey, I want to be a chemist or I want to be a doctor. And so they did that. And then there was a lot of us that were like, well, I guess we should be going to college because this is just the next thing. Do you think we should reevaluate the emphasis of where college is right now, given the cost and also the debt that kids are coming out with?
Oh, 100%. Like I said, I have 3 kids, and my husband and I are now full-time entrepreneurs. He left his 10-year CPA corporate controller gig to help me meet Sling on the internet. Like,
He must like you a lot.
he does. He's a big fan of me. But the truth is that things have shifted so dramatically in how people make money. I couldn't have gotten a degree for the work that I'm doing now. It didn't exist, right? Like, the idea of creating content for people and using that as a marketing platform, it didn't exist. It really didn't. And there couldn't have been classes that I could have taken at college that would have given me that kind of education. This was a trial by fire, if we want to make a barbecue pun. So I've told my kids college is not a requisite. It's an option. And if they do have something specific that they would like to go into that requires higher education, we will encourage them and support them through that. If they want to start their own endeavor and be entrepreneurial, we'll help them through that. If they would like to work blue collar and get a trade job, fantastic. We're very open-minded.
2020 is obviously hindsight. Would you have gone to college if you knew what you're going to do now, or no way?
I think so, because for me, it was a lot more affordable. I graduated college with 0 debt, which very few people can do now. And I learned a lot about how to be self-motivated and how to be driven and how to be independent. And I don't think that I think I could have also learned those skills in other places. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I don't think college was a waste of time for me at that point. I think it taught me a lot. So it was a good, safe place for me to kind of stretch my wings and learn.
Susie Bulloch joining me here on the show, heygrillhey.com, also on Instagram as well. So the Hey Grill Hey phenomenon is unique as it starts. You weren't sitting around thinking you needed to start a YouTube channel or fire up an Instagram account. You were just helping a neighbor out, and that's kind of that's kind of how this whole thing started, right?
Yeah. So I left college, got married, had kids, right? And I transitioned instantaneously into the stay-at-home mom role. And I made it about 6 months before I realized I needed something to keep my brain busy, or I was going to go crazy.
The Wiggles weren't doing it for you?
Hey, I just really don't like laundry. So I needed to find something that would keep me busy enough that I didn't have to do laundry. And I could put it off for longer. That's the truth. So I started working for a website that was a blog. And this blog was about coupon deals and how to save money on your kids' Christmas and all these other things. And I just worked on the back end doing content creation. So I helped write posts as a ghostwriter. And a couple years later, a neighbor had an opportunity come up for her to write recipes on the backside of a blog for a company that manufactured smokers. And she was not interested in the position, but she knew that I knew about how blogging worked kind of on the back end. And she also knew that I had a really strong love of food and a good culinary background. Not like culinary school, right? But but I love food and I had experience in that way. So she recommended me for the job. I picked up the job, and a few days later, a smoker shows up on my front doorstep, and they said, we need 5 new recipes a week that can you write and create 5 recipes a week for us for this blog that we're starting. And me being luckily ignorant enough to not say no, hauled this thing out to my backyard, fired it up, and started cranking out food on a smoker.
Was it exciting? I mean, you get the grill. Do you mind if I ask who the grill company was?
It was Traeger.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if anybody uses the Traeger app or gets recipes from the Traeger website, I wrote lots of those.
Really? Yeah. I mean, they're kind of a sponsor of the show. Shout out to Traeger. Yeah.
I wrote. They fired me later. That's how the story goes.
They fired you or they smoked you? Okay. So I mean, you jump right in, right? I mean, you're cranking out 5 recipes a week. I mean, are you finding it to be difficult, or did it come pretty easy? And this is where the mojo starts to kick in.
So this was like 7 or 8 years ago, right? When Traeger had kind of changed hands and we're really launching into this fantastic new world of pellet grill, manufacturing and marketing, and really marketing to the backyard enthusiast. But up to that point, they had a lot of really like barbecue dudes that knew what they were talking about. So
Right.
when I started writing recipes, I was incredibly intimidated because I was writing for an audience that knew more than I did, which is always a scary place to start, to not be writing from a place of authority. And I didn't like that feeling at all. And I knew that if I was going to continue, I had to have a better handle, not just on the product, but on the meat that I was putting on there, on the recipes that I was using, on the techniques that I was trying out and testing and writing into these recipes. So I dug really deep into barbecue research, and I call it my like my barbecue college that I sent myself to, because there's not really a culinary program for barbecue enthusiasts,
Mhm.
right? So I read every barbecue cookbook that I could get my hands on. Like every 2 weeks, a new book came from Amazon. And I just consumed as much as I could. I even had friends that would bring cookbooks to me to read because they knew that I was interested. And I watched all of the YouTube videos that I could find. And I just really dug into it. And I did cooking. When you're cooking every single day, you learn a lot and you learn really quickly. So not only was I doing my best to like read and take things in and teach myself that way, I was also applying everything that I learned that same day. And as I worked through this, I found that I absolutely loved it. First of all, like this was a very, very, very enjoyable process for me, and that I was pretty good at writing recipes. I had a knack for combining flavors and kind of developing flavors that had a really great end result. And I think because I didn't necessarily have a very traditional background in barbecue, like that low and slow wood fired cooking, it allowed me to be a little bit experimental and to try new things and maybe push some boundaries in some ways for the recipes that I was writing. And as I was seeing these recipes shared on social media, people were responding and they were cooking them at home. And then they were taking pictures of their food and posting the pictures that they cooked on Facebook and other social media. And I could kind of see the way that this online community was working and how barbecue people liked to hang out and talk to other barbecue people. And so first I kind of fell in love with the food and the recipes and that process of cooking barbecue. And then I really fell in love with the people and the community that surrounds this barbecue culture. And from then on, like that, it was lights out. There was nothing else I wanted to do.
I don't know if you know who this is, but they're sending me a note to say hi. Nancy Lowski says hi. Do you know Nancy?
Hi, Nancy.
Hey, hey. By the way, she's a Buckeye, so, you know,
Hi.
Cleveland.
I think I know Nancy from back in my Traeger days.
Really?
Yeah.
So we're going back. All right, I like it.
In a while.
Where does the name Hey Grill Hey come from?
A joke that my husband and I played in the shopping grocery store aisle. We were looking for certain ingredients, and so kind of here's the transition. Like I was working at Traeger and I was working as a contract employee, which means that I was working from home and sending recipes remotely. So I wasn't in office, and this was before they had moved to their big headquarters in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And so when they made the move to Salt Lake City, they told me that they were bringing all the jobs in-house. And the blog was being transitioned away from like a blog to more of like they were doing their apps and everything on the website being integrated, which was a really smart move for them, by the way.
Yeah,
There's no
sure.
like bad blood or anything. But they let me know that I wasn't going to have a position there anymore as a freelance recipe writer. And so I really hit this point where I had to decide, well, that was the easy road, right? Like I had a built-in audience that I didn't have to maintain. There was a brand message that was already established that I didn't have to build. But that was all taken away. And I still had in my mind so many recipes that either were in development or that I had started the process for, even that I had written and photographed already, but nowhere to put them. I had no outlet for this anymore. So I had to decide if I was going to apply for another job or look for another job in recipe development. But I just had this gut feeling that it was time to jump and to go out on my own and give myself the freedom to really push some of these recipes that I loved and that I had been developing and had been working on. And I knew that I would be starting from scratch and I knew that I wouldn't have an audience. And so we had to figure out what we were going to call this thing. So we wanted it to be lighthearted and we wanted it to be fun. We didn't want anything to be like so serious or so heavy. We wanted people to know, because that's who I am, right? I'm like a young mom of 3 kids, like trying to make her way in the barbecue world. And so we were trying to my husband and I were trying to come up with a play on the words, like girl, grill, like Susie Q. We came, like so many different things. And we just landed on Hey Grill, Hey as a joke, because I guess there was an MTV show where one of the people was like, hey girl, and somebody else was like, hey, and then it kind of became this like mainstream phrase. So we transitioned that and ran with it. And it's been really fun because most people can't say our name without saying like, hey grill, hey, even if they don't know initially where it came from.
Yeah, and maybe I said that in my promo video earlier today. Hey grill. I always want to say like, hey girl, but and of course you just explain why I want to say that. So I always have to catch myself and say, hey grill instead of hey girl. So,
and it was intentional. We wanted it to be fun and we wanted to have people kind of thinking about what they were going to get when they came to our website.
So when you decide that because you have these recipes in development, because you don't just want to hang it up or go apply for other jobs, you're going to go it alone. Do you realize that there is a value right off the bat with social media, especially Facebook and Instagram? Or did you just think it was Facebook back then and didn't really know too much about Instagram? Because that seems to be, if you're a barbecue or grill person and you don't have an Instagram account, you're a little behind the times.
I was lucky enough to realize it from the very beginning. And part of that was because I had another neighbor. Apparently I had a very large neighborhood of people who had ideas, but she worked for a startup company that put on races that people could sign up for and buy. And part of their marketing platform was social media. And so I worked for her again, like from home, helping them with their engagement on Instagram and on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter. And so I actually had behind the scenes experience from a brand perspective on each of these social media platforms. So I think that was incredibly helpful when it came to starting my own site. So I knew right away that each of those platforms was going to be important to at least have a presence on. So, and I liked Instagram probably because that's the one that I use the most personally. So that was the easiest one for me to jump into right at the beginning.
So what's the easiest way for you to track success and what seems to really generate the most interest from your followers?
Video. I think every single platform is moving to video in one way or another, right? Every platform already has, right? Here we are. Every platform already has video of like ways that you can utilize video to grow your own platform. For us, Facebook was a very, very, very big deal. We did have a few videos that did well on Instagram, but Instagram is actually one of our smaller platforms. Facebook, we have 2 channels on Facebook. So there's the Hey Grill, Hey fan page that has the little blue check mark, like that one's me. You can follow that one. And we share recipes that we've published in the past. We share every time we put up a new recipe, and we have a new show that we're doing, and we're publishing long 6 to 10 minute TV show style content every Thursday. And then we have a Facebook watch show, which is entirely video. And those, we have videos go up every single day on that channel. And those, between those 2 pages, we have almost 3 million followers between those 2 pages.
Wow, that's huge, right?
Yeah, and it, honestly, I can tell you it was 100% video that grew those platforms. We had our first viral video. It was Dr. Pepper jalapeno beef jerky, and it took off like a rocket. And honestly, that was like a very pivotal recipe for us and kind of changed the idea of like, this is something that I love, this is something that I want to continue to do, to something like, oh, this is something that can generate revenue. So that was cool.
What do you find isn't a big eyeball draw for the fan base?
Twitter.
Really? Is it just too clogged up anymore?
I just think the stuff that really floats to the top in the Twitter universe is stuff that's controversial, stuff that causes people to type really fast and angry. And like, we have a following on Twitter and we continue to post on Twitter and utilize that space, but I feel like it is the least effective, I would say, in terms of our goals, which is to get people back to our website, right? Like, social media is great, and we have great numbers on social media and great engaged following. But for us, we want you to come to our website. Like, we want you to hang out on our page that we've designed, that we've put a lot of money and love and time and care into curating, so that you can find recipes, that you can be inspired, and you can cook something from our page, share that experience with your family and friends, and that's a place that you want to keep coming back to, right? We want you to hit the bookmark button. And instead of going to Facebook or Instagram, you just come to us and come hang out with us on there. Because all of our videos are on our website too. All of our recipes are there. We send out amazing emails every week when we feature and highlight people that have cooked our recipes. So yeah, for us, the biggest draw is to use whatever social platforms are out there to bring people back to our home base.
There are, a number, I guess you could say, of Instagram accounts right now that will teach you how to get hundreds of followers every day if you follow their method. But it's usually done with someone else's high-quality picture, and then you bury the credit all the way down the post, if at all.
Yeah.
I assume you're not a fan of that tactic.
No, I think there is a proper way to do. I'm not like anti-reposting 100% like it's the devil. I think there's a way to do proper reposting, and I think that there's a way to do that with getting approval from the content creator and it becoming more of a collaborative effort where you both benefit, right? And then I can share that post that you made with my followers, and we can like, even just you did today, saying, hey Grill Hay's going to be on this show, right? And then I share that, and then my followers know, oh, Hey Grill Hay's over here. That's cool. And so I think there is a way to be collaborative, and I think there is a way to share, and it changes on different platforms. Facebook is very pro sharing other people's stuff, and let's help each other out, and let's drive the page views to each other. Instagram, you got to tread lightly because people are so incredibly protective of their content, as they should be.
Sure.
You need to have those conversations and talk to each other and build a relationship. I think the skeezy way of reposting is you steal something without. I had to block. I think I've blocked 9 accounts this week of people that were stealing. Wow. Oh yeah, I probably do at least one a day, sometimes more, of people that have tagged me, right? But it's way, way, way down, and they didn't ask my permission, and their entire account is reposting, and their only intent is to grow their fan base so they can sell the account, which is against Instagram's terms of service, or they can use the account to sell product, right? They usually drive you to like a really crappy website with barbecue themed t-shirts, or their intent is to sell sponsored placements to ad networks, right? Like to different companies. And all of those are really incredibly unethical.
Susie Bulloch joining me here on the show. Susie, can I hold you over for a couple minutes here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the website and then get into some recipes?
Sure.
All right, stand by. We're talking with Susie Bulloch from Hey Grill Hay.